This is Will N5OLA. I thought I would take a break from restoring HW101 transceivers and turn my attention to this guy. It's an IM-18 vacuum tube voltmeter. Why I like these old voltmeters is because you can plug in an RF probe and do some cool diagnostics. I picked this up from Goodwill. Actually online, Goodwill, shopgoodwill.com. They have a lot of test equipment that you can buy really cheap. I knew there was something wrong with this because there's some kind of corrosion happening here, and on the bottom, it's so corroded it's actually sticky. I suspect there is a battery inside there that gave up the ghost. But anyway, let's open it up. Oh, wow. Take a look at what's on the meter. I mean, this thing is just full of corrosion. And there's our circa 1980s Radio Shack battery. Oh boy. Is it worth messing with? Absolutely. I've got a PDF of an IM-18 manual. I'm going to disassemble this following the manual. I want to tear it down as much as I can so I can get this stuff replaced. Clean it up, check the tubes. I see this tube here, it's not even seated correctly. That may be why it didn't work right when I plugged it in. Let's get that old battery out of there. There is battery acid in the air. I can feel it going up my nose right now. Got the battery out, and I'm going to pop the tubes. Looks like if we want to get this thing apart, I'm going to have to desolder the wires coming from the transformer. What I want is access to these screws right here. It looks like I'm going to have to remove the switches as well. No big deal. Need to do it anyway if we're going to clean the front. Well, question is, will we be able to get it all back together again? Don't know. And of course, this corroded thing broke off, so we're going to have to improvise something. So my objective is to get this thing cleaned up, and I can't do that without removing the power cable. So I'm going to do that. I am going to remove the wiring that holds these sections together because I really want to do a good job cleaning up these switches and cleaning up this board and cleaning up these pots. And I'm not going to be able to do that if I've got to tussle with all these wires. So thankfully, Heathkit makes really good manuals. So that will guide me through reconnecting them. There. That wasn't so difficult, and it'll be fun to put back together too. I checked the manual, and the 3 pots are all 10K pots. I see that this one's 9.9K, that's good. This one's a little higher, it's 11.3K, that's still okay. And then this one is 10.8, 11. That's all fine. That's all within 15%. That's what we're going for. So remove that cap, and I notice everything feels like it's got battery acid on it. It just has that acidic feeling. And I think to start things off, I want to just give this the sink scrub treatment. I do this all the time with my transceivers. Doesn't hurt them at all, but you do have to give them plenty of drying time. So this will give me a break to move on and work on something else while it's drying. Also, there's a lamp. Forgot about that. Let's take that out, test it. It's clean, but the pots look bad. Let's see if we can shine them up with a little Brasso. Well, A for effort, but I can't shine those up. They've been too severely compromised from the battery acid. So I could polish them up with a Dremel, maybe sand them a little bit, or I could just leave them alone. I did not manage to keep that transformer dry, so in the oven it goes, 150 degrees for 30 minutes. Now I'm going to clean this up and give it a good sanding. So that looks a lot better. Still got some staining on the inside. I couldn't get my sander in there. I did use a piece of sandpaper just to make sure I got any excess battery acid off of there, and it's clean now. You know, that battery acid really turned this into a major intervention. There's still so much corrosive acid on the inside of this front panel. I want to clean it up. There's not much I can do about this the silk screening, but I might be able to create a decal. This cleaned up really nicely, and I have to say I'm grateful that there weren't any big cracks in this. There usually are. Here's my plan for the cabinet. The inside is just a mess. So what I'm going to do is clean it and then treat it with Ospo. Since it's starting to rust, I think that would be a good way to reverse the rust process and maybe clean out some of that corrosion as well. As for the outside, I don't have a paint that would match this. However, I do have a custom spray paint that matches my SB line cabinets. If we're going to change the color of the meter, why not make it something that will match our radios? I want to keep this because I'm going to put a new sticker on there because details matter. Sadly, I'm going to have to sacrifice the rubber feet. They're just falling apart, but I've got a plan. The corrosion on the inside is not as bad as I thought. I'm still going to hit it with Ospo though. I forgot to mention, when I sanded that stainless bracket, I used 220 grade sandpaper, something really fine. This time I'm going to start with a 60 grade to cut through the paint, and then I'm going to shift over to a 220 to smooth it out. And 5 minutes later, it is ready for priming and painting. The Ospo did a good job on the rust. As soon as I poured it on there, you could hear it sizzling. While the paint's drying, I'm going to deal with this switch. And man, everywhere I touch, it feels like battery acid. So I think I'm just going to put it in the sink and scrub it. Giving it a good immersion. And then I'm going to take my toothbrush and just scrub all the points. And this doesn't hurt it at all. The main thing is it has to get very dry, and so I'll put it back in the oven. So I'm not thoroughly excited with how the cabinet goes with the faceplate. It's not a good match. Let's try something else. Let's go with good old Heathkit green. This is another one that I have custom made, and I do sell these. This will match the Heathkit HW101, the HW16, and other transceivers. Now that's more like it. I still hate that I've got paint missing on the bottom of this. What are we going to do about that? She's a beauty, but she needs feet. I think these would be nice. I got these by mistake. I thought they were going to replace the feet on my power supply. They're way too small, but perfect for this application. I knew they would come in handy someday. Here's what it's going to look like when it's all back together. It's going to be nice. However, I'm still really bothered by this part at the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and just use a cleanser and remove the silk screening here. And I'm going to just try to reproduce this as a decal and then completely cover the front with a clear coat to protect what's left of the silk screening. We're still going to have the metal showing through here. There's really nothing I can do about that. There's no way to match this paint perfectly. There's just no way. So better to just put some nice silk screening on there and leave that as just sort of scars from the past, proof of a long, happy life. So there's the end result. I ended up going with acetone, and as I was doing it, it started to take off some of the paint, and so I tried to create a little pattern. At least it's got evenness now. I actually made some decals based on the lettering on the back of an HW101. Using that font, I went into Photoshop and came up with this. Took a couple tries on regular paper to get the size right, but that's the right font. And I did it at about 75% black to match what's on there already. I cut these really close to the words so that there's not a lot of excess plastic showing. I mean, doing decals, it's kind of a compromise. It's not as good as silk screening, but it's a whole lot better than just an empty blank front panel. Cool thing about decals also is they're very forgiving. As long as they stay wet, you can move them around, and I'm just going to eyeball these. I'm going to get a little water on there first, where the letters are going to be. It actually looks pretty good. It's a very nice match. And when I've got it exactly where I want it, I'm going to just mash out the water. And hope that I didn't move it around. I think that looks pretty good. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I'd say that's an improvement. This is the decal paper I use. Runs to about 50 cents a sheet. I do it on a laser printer. I want it to dry thoroughly before I apply the clear coat, so I'm just gonna set it out in the breeze for a little while. And man, I do like that. Here's my clear coat. The purpose of the clear coat is to protect the decals and to protect what's left of the silk screening. And there it is with the clear coat. You really have to be looking carefully to see that this is a decal strip. I'm really happy with that. Not happy with that, but what can I do? I need to replace this coil that attaches to the positive end of the C battery. And I found some just plain old household wire, really stiff. And I think what I'm gonna do is try to wind it on this and see if I can't simulate that shape. That's what I came up with. It's very rigid. I don't know if it's going to be springy enough, but we'll find out. The meter's been reattached. Now I'm going to reattach the switches. Time to look at these components, namely the resistors. These are precision resistors. They're 1% resistors. They're meant to be very, very accurate, or they were back in the 60s. Have they changed in value? Probably. These are 1% precision resistors. They're hard to find these days. And they're especially hard to find because they're weird values. Take a look at this. I found two that were off, this 9 megohm and 900K. Well, you don't find these values typically. You find 9.1 megohm and 910K. So that's what I bought because those are within 1%. And when I got my packet of resistors, these are 5% resistors. And I went through and I checked them and I found the ones that were within 1% because, you know, some of them are 2%, some of them are 1% or 3%. So I found the ones that were closest to the actual value and installed them here. They're still within 1%. That's a whole lot better than what was here before. These were actually, they had drifted 5% out of value. I checked these resistors in here around the the 6AL5 tube. There are 5 22 ohm resistors and they all tested high. When a resistor is this high in value and it goes even higher, it essentially becomes an insulator. And that's going to affect my AC voltage checks. So I'm going to replace all of these. Got the wires running from the switches to the board reinstalled. Time to install the board. Testing the tubes. This is the 12AU7. It checks out just nicely. This is my 6AL5. It doesn't look too healthy. Thankfully, I've got a few replacements. Tubes are in place. I checked out the lamp, it's good. So now I've maneuvered the bracket over the PC board so that it rests on these little notches on each side. And I'm gonna try to get it all assembled. And I don't think I'm gonna do this on video because it's a little tricky. Heathkit gives you enough excess wire so that you can pull the circuit board this way and mount this bracket to the 2 screws that hold the meter to the front panel. I've got it all installed, the battery's in place, and now I can attach this wire that runs to the 1/4-inch jack. Install it right there. Tighten the transformer to the Z bracket. Okay, my 3-line cord is installed. Everything running from the switches to the boards is installed. I think it's time to power up. I should have done the next step before the line cord was attached. This is how it looks. It's pretty greasy. I use a little crud cutter, and here's what it looks like when it's cleaned up. This plastic cleans up very nicely. That's before, that's after. By the way, that ground pin looks like it's seen some action. And just 2 screws to attach the cabinet. And I'm going to use new hardware, of course. There she is. Wonder if she works. By the way, I just noticed this. Ew, that blue. I know how to deal with that. Little OSFO on the Q-tip. And then a dry Q-tip to get all the residue out of there. Good to go. Moment of truth. See our little red lights on. That is created by a piece of red tape in front of the lamp. Getting some meter deflection, that's good. Gonna let it settle down while the tubes warm up. I think we shall put this through the calibration process, see how it does. And I do believe that's a wrap. And there she is, all done in her new Heathkit green cabinet. One last thing, this is the series number foil sticker that was on it, and it's seen better days. So I thought I would put a replica on there. This is a sticker that I had made up. I use these on my restorations. That'll be a nice finishing touch. And now let's try it out. I let it warm up for a minute or so, which you have to do with these vacuum tube voltmeters. I'm gonna just test the resistance on this 1K wire wound resistor. And so I'm gonna first zero adjust. Get that at 0 in AC. Then I'm going to switch over to ohms and I'm going to zero adjust that side. Now I know this resistor is running a little high, so it's probably going to be about 1100. I've got it set at resistance times 100. So add 2 zeros to that 10 and you've got the resistance of about, I don't know, 1050 ohms. and that's good. I like using vacuum tube voltmeters when I'm doing certain alignment procedures on boat anchor transceivers. I'll tell you, for instance, if I'm going to null the carrier, I want to be able to attach an RF probe. Now, I can, of course, use my oscilloscope, but if I want to do it old school and a kind of an easier way, I can just attach an RF probe to this thing, and it will sniff out the RF energy that's coming out when I'm trying to null the carrier. And same with neutralizing the finals. You can attach the RF probe. You can't do that with a digital meter, not any of the ones I've seen. You got to have this phono jack. I'm really impressed with how those decals came out. The model IM-18 and Heath Company, Benton Harbor, Michigan. You really cannot tell that those are decals. I am sad about the missing paint, but you know, that's how you know it's seen some use. Those are its service stripes. So it's a veteran. Anyway, there she is. She's a beauty, and with a really nice label on the back. All right, that's it. 73.